I am, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Katie Rice, your county supervisor. If you're from District 2, I'm going to fill in a little air time while we wait for folks to join the meeting. But it's great to see a lot of familiar names and faces. And you are welcome to turn your video on if you would like to. I think I've got everyone muted at this point, and we'll probably keep you muted till we get to Q&A or questions or comments. But please feel free to turn on your video or not. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up? Yeah? Okay. Good evening, folks. People are still trickling in here. Got some more to admit. Let's see. And Nancy, are you admitting people for me?
Yes.
Thank you. So while we're here getting set up, just so you all know, this is a Zoom meeting versus a Zoom webinar. And myself, I and my co-pilot, Nancy Vernon, who's also my able assistant, is co-hosting with me, but we are the technicians on this Zoom. So if things get a little bumpy, please forgive us. Okay. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, you have a choice on how you can view this meeting. And if you go up to the right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little box that says view, and there's a grid next to it. And if you hit that button, you have a choice of gallery view. And in that view, you'll see everybody that's on the Zoom, and you might have to scroll through sheets, or you can go to speaker view, and then you'll just see whoever's speaking. And I prefer gallery view because it's a big screen when there's only one face on there. And it's yours. Okay. All right, Nancy, you think that's about it?
Yep, let's get started.
Okay. All right. Well, again, welcome, folks. For those of you who don't know me, I am Katie Rice. I am the county supervisor representing District 2, which is pretty much all of the Ross Valley and parts of San Rafael. I have been supervisor for the last, since November 2011. So I believe that's 9 years under my belt, and just started a new term. And I continue to be really honored to serve in this seat and to represent the constituents of District 2, though people have different views on all sorts of different subjects, so it's not always an easy place to sit, but it's a great place and great communities within District 2, and I'm very proud of this place and this county generally, though I'm sure there's plenty to criticize. It really is a great place we all live in. So we are here today, obviously, to talk about Sir Francis Drake and the lights in particular. And what I want to do is begin with just, in addition to welcoming you, provide a little overview of how this meeting's going to go. It's set for an hour. I don't think we're going to need longer than that. But basically, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the lighting plan as it is today. I'll provide a little background. And then I'm going to talk about what the intentions are going forward in terms of process and next steps as the lighting plan as it exists is reevaluated and assessed in response to neighbor and community comments and concerns, and then also just technical analysis that our engineers will be doing. And then we'll have time for plenty of time, trying to save at least 30 minutes for questions, for comments, and happy to hear from as many people as possible. And if a lot of people want to speak, I may ask you to be as concise as possible. But basically, that's it. This is specifically to talk really about the lighting plan and next steps. This is not a technical meeting. I'm not going to be able to answer really technical questions, but there'll be an opportunity for that with project team at a later date when they circle back with some recommendations on how to make some improvements to what's there. So with that, I think we will get started. So just for some context, while I am seeing lots of folks who I know have been around for a while, I'm seeing some new faces as well. I want to just outline the overall project. And the history of this project goes back several years. And for many of you, you will remember we had an intensive community process around the design and figuring out what to do in this corridor above and beyond what the paving and the basics that were going to be done. So in general, high level view, this is basically a once in a generation corridor improvement that will rehabilitate 2.2 miles of Sir Francis Drake Boulevard from Highway 101 to the Ross town limit on the eastern side. It's an 18-month construction project, and it includes safety enhancement and upgrades, everything from the paving, which will be last, to pedestrian safety improvements, sidewalk improvements, intersection changes, lighting changes in terms of traffic signals, striping, traffic operations generally, also utility infrastructure improvements for laying different kinds of conduit beyond what the lighting system is on. And also underneath it all, MMWD is doing a major water main improvement underneath the project. And the goal and intention was to align the corridor improvement in terms of paving and street upgrades, et cetera, with that MMWD project. So we didn't do a paving project and street project and then have it dug up by MMWD. And that collaboration and integration of these two projects has also saved both the water district and the county money on this overall project. So as it stands today, the project is ahead of schedule and it's on budget. And considering the scope of the work, this project has gone about as smoothly as it can. I know there's been impacts for neighbors and for folks using the corridor, but for such a major public improvement, public infrastructure improvement, it's really been going quite well up until the lights. So, and that's why we are here tonight. So as was evident from the experience on the ground in your backyards and in the analysis of lay folks like myself driving down the corridor, as well as the project team members and engineers, it was pretty evident the minute those lights went on, especially those corridor lights, that the lighting plan was not meeting folks' expectations. We've received over 200 emails between my own inbox and the project website in the last few weeks regarding both direct light pollution coming into folks' neighbors' yards. And that's either sometimes around new intersection lighting and sometimes with regards to the corridor lighting. And then also comments about the just general aesthetics of the infrastructure that was put in place. So what's happening right now is an assessment of what's there and what to do next. So I want to make sure we don't lose sight of why the project was triggered in the first place. And basically, any major streets project, they're going to take a look at the lights. So that's a given. But we heard from the community during the design process in terms of what did the community want to see in the corridor, whether that had to do with flow of traffic or pedestrian improvements. There were also a lot of concerns expressed around nighttime visibility and driving in that corridor. And then we've also had some accidents, and I don't remember the dates, but we've had at least one fatality, someone hit in the crosswalk at Ash. And I believe another accident farther down towards the College of Marin. So we had safety issues we knew we wanted to address. We had community concerns around lighting and visibility. And then just generally with any street project, you're going to look at lights. So the goal of the project is to improve that nighttime lighting towards lowering risk of car collision and improving lighting and safety for pedestrians using the walkways, especially on that major improvement that's on the north side of Sir Francis Drake across from Bon Air Center, which is improved multi-use path. We hope to see more people utilizing that. And then just generally in the intersections to improve visibility for everyone. The new intersection lighting started to be turned on in late January, and the project team and I immediately started hearing from neighbors directly in the vicinity of those intersections. Not every neighbor was seeing you know, was seeing light they didn't want to see or had an adverse impact, but definitely there were neighbors who were not happy with what was happening. And then the new lighting was installed along the median from El Portal to Alicio, or Alicio to El Portal if you're going the other direction. That was turned on the night of February 3rd. So it was immediately obvious to everyone that it was, I want to say over the top. I don't want to say overkill, but was not what anyone was expected, and definitely was having unintended consequences, was not okay from anyone, from anyone's vantage point, as far as I can tell. So county staff completely agreed. They agreed with the assessment, and they worked fairly quickly with the contractors on the ground, and we turned those lights off. They weren't necessary. These are the median lights. They weren't necessary in terms of safety. They weren't making a change that wasn't, you know, we went back to the status quo there, but the intersection lights were left on, and this is probably, you know, out of safety concerns, and we need to keep those on. So that was just, let's see, 2 weeks ago. Is that 2 weeks ago? Is that right? Yes, 2 weeks ago, a little less. So those lights went off, and of course I was immediately meeting with county staff, with the project team, to figure out what are the next steps going to be. Communicating with you as well as we could, and I'm sorry if I didn't respond personally to every single email that came in. But anyway, here we are. So what's going to happen next is, and this is in parallel, we have some intersection lighting and we have neighbors with concerns, and the county team, someone from the county team will be working with individual neighbors who have contacted us around the intersection lights to work on, see what can be done to sort of mitigate whatever impacts those neighbors are feeling. And that could be anything from back shields around a fixture to different light fixtures themselves. But neighbors who are in the vicinity of those intersections that are wanting to work with the project team, you should reach out directly to me if you have not already, or to the project website. And I want to manage expectations on this side. It's, you know, any new lighting is going to be a change from previous lighting. But I think the objective is to meet the safety goals in terms of lighting, and then also do as much as we can to make sure that that new lighting, whatever is new lighting, is as amenable to neighbors as possible. So simultaneously, the county, and this is with, now we're talking about the median lighting, mostly along that stretch in front of Bon Air from Alici to Portal, but there's also some other additional median lighting farther on. But the county's brought on a new lighting consultant who's going to revisit the original photometric analysis and work with the project team and the county to develop what sort of modifications and alternatives can be, are feasible to address the lighting concerns and still provide the kind of lighting that we're wanting. And actually I should say lighting concerns and aesthetics. Both, those are both being looked at. And when I say aesthetics, I'm talking about the actual infrastructure. This could include modifications such as adding those lighting backplates that I'm talking about, or shields, which, you know, could keep lighting on the street, but I'm I don't know if you can see my hand, but diffuse what was spilling off into a neighbor's yard. It could include pole replacements, and I mean that in terms of both height and even arm. These are called the cobras, if you can see my arms. Those could be changed out, and fixture replacement as necessary. And and other potential solutions as well. So really they're sort of looking at this holistically. And I think before anyone goes to, though I'm sure this question will come up, this is, we're going to be throwing all this money at this project that should have been designed right in the first place. Just to put you in, to give you some perspective of dollar context, the entire lighting project is, the bulk of the cost is actually towards the conduit, the base stands, the hard infrastructure, not the poles and the fixtures. And frankly, there's money within the contingency fund to work on this. And given how well the project's gone so far, I'm not feeling bad about putting towards some more money to make this lighting plan work as best as it can, as we can make it for the community. But all in all, I mean, we're talking a contract with a consultant under $50,000, and I couldn't tell you exactly what it is yet. And don't imagine actually having to spend any more than $100,000 or $150,000 total to make improvements to what's there. Because again, the bulk of the cost, which is something like $600,000 for the entire lighting project, the bulk of it is not what you're seeing. It's the underground stuff and the standards. So let's see, where am I? So the county's going to be working with this lighting consultant. They will develop these some alternatives, and once those alternatives are developed, expect to kind of come back, circle back to the community, either through the CAC and or through a larger community meeting, to present those options and seek feedback from the community and input on what choices there may be. And then they'll take that feedback and do some further technical analysis, and that will inform a final recommended plan that will be presented to the community before implementation. The timing for all of this is we should have a consultant on board any day. They expect, nothing's hard and fast here, but expect to have some design alternatives fleshed out during March. In early May, have something ready to present to either the Community Advisory Committee and or a larger community group with regards to preliminary alternatives and looking for some more feedback and input from the community. And then hopefully by late April, be ready to present the refined alternatives to the community. And then ultimately in May, nail down, have the redesign nailed down and ready to go towards having it implemented before the project is paved later in the summer. So that we're trying to work backwards from that, get this done as quickly as possible, but get it done right. And then also allow for time, because if we do need to order new poles or standards, there's no guarantee that those can be turned around in a few weeks. So we want to allow time to order any new fixtures, et cetera, that may have a waiting time. So let's see. I think that covers most of pretty much where we're at. I hope it gives you enough background. And what I'd like to do now is open it up to any questions, which I will do my best to answer. And anything that I can't answer, we can send to our project team and get them up on the FAQ. I hope that all of you have or know to access the Upgrade the Drake website, which is www.upgradethedrake.com. And they've really put up over the last week a lot of good information, I think answers to the most common questions, many that will come up maybe tonight. And that will continue to be updated, but that is also a resource if you are looking for more information that you don't get tonight and or haven't gotten yet, and just want to go to the website and look there. So I think at this time, what I'd ask you to do is, if you have a question, if you could raise your hand, and hopefully you can see a raise hand button, and then I'll call on you and unmute you, and we'll try to manage that. And if, as I said, be a little patient. All right, so Scott Lockard, I am going to unmute you, and then you should be able to unmute yourself.
Great, thank you very much. My concern, I feel for the folks that are having too much light come into their yards and places that they didn't want it before. My concern, it has to do more with the traffic lights themselves. It appears to me that the poles that are holding up these lights, in some cases at intersections, are only holding up a street light as opposed to a traffic light. The girth of these things, the diameter seems to be 2 to 3 times what used to be there. And I don't know if looks to me like someone said, well, what's the biggest thing of lights we're ever going to need to support? It's X. Okay, well, make them all that big, because there's several that look like a giant tree trunk with just this little twig, you know, of a light sticking out. And just the sheer amount of galvanized metal out there, I think, is a aesthetic drag, and the whole thing just looks like, holy cow, you know, what are we holding up here anyway? So that's my concern. I don't not have a concern about the levels of light. I think those ought to be as low as possible. But I think just even the size of these traffic lights needs to be looked at and understand what the criteria were that went into sizing them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott, and Nancy, actually we're recording this, so we'll actually get this down no matter what. And Nancy's taking some notes, because this is going to be good input for the project team, regardless if you sent in an email or not. But so Scott, what I'm hearing you, and I'm visualizing like the intersection at Sir Francis Drake and Alicio, and the traffic lights and sort of the fixtures overhead, and what's the rationale for those, and or is there any alternatives to that?
I'm not talking about the horizontal, the lights for the traffic lights. I'm talking about the vertical poles.
Okay.
Some of those are clearly holding up these long arrays of traffic lights, which is another level of question. But some of them are only holding up like a tiny little cobra head, and it just looks like the poles themselves have been just bought in bulk. We want 50, you know, as big as a redwood tree, please.
Yeah.
So
good question and observation, and I think that will be a good one for the FAQ sheet as well. I can't answer it for you, but I think it's a really excellent observation.
Thank you.
Dennis Maloney, or Malone, you can unmute yourself. There you are.
You know, in my work, I travel a lot, or at least I traveled a lot before the COVID. And one of the things that I noticed, because I'm sensitive to it, is the quality of light, not just the height and the placement, which I'm really glad to hear that they might be coming down. But, you know, at home, we have incandescents, and we have LEDs, and we have halogens. But I know there's a whole variety of commercial lights for commercial lighting. And what I notice in different communities is that there's there's blue lights and white lights and yellow lights. They have different effects and produce a different kind of feeling overall in the area. And I wonder if that's something that was considered ever, or if it's something we could consider now, especially if we're going to end up only changing some fixtures in addition to the height. So that was just a thought that I had. If we have a choice, it might be good to see what kind of light makes us feel homey.
Yeah, so I can tell you in very lay person terms. So when I say fixtures, I'm talking both about the fixture heads themselves and actually the light bulb in it. And I'm hesitant to call the light bulb because I'm not even sure that's what they call them anymore. So when I say fixtures, it is also speaking to whatever the generator of light is in that fixture. And yes, the quality of the light and the not just the technology, but the gradation in terms of, you know, hard white to warmer is looked at and is being considered and will be reconsidered in this. I think with LED, you don't have quite the same quality, maybe latitude of quality as you do with the old incandescents. I may be wrong there, but definitely that is part of the mix and needs to be part of the assessment. And then to the degree that we have the ability to choose lighting that meets the safety goals and also I think meets the effects that we all would like to see, which I think is less harsh versus lighter, but maybe that's a personal preference that I share with you. So also in the mix and also duly noted right now. And I'm going to ask Dennis and Scott if you could lower your hand, then I won't by accident come back to you. Okay. Judy, where'd she go? There she is. Judy, yes, there she goes. Judy Erdberg.
Yes, hi. What is the Community Advisory Committee that's going to be considering this, and how does one join it, or is it fixed? Could you talk about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So way back in the beginning of this whole Sir Francis Drake evolution, which began, with paper and then in community meetings, we, as often, my experience in local government is it's good to have both a technical advisory committee, folks outside of a project to for the professionals to use for sounding board and input on technical aspects of a project, but also to take advantage of a community group of representatives from the community, stakeholders, as a sounding board to use for feedback on project elements or whatever the project team is actually wanting is moving on. And this is not in lieu of a larger community workshop or process, but in the interim, it's, a smaller sort of focus group. So the Community Advisory Committee, that's what it was called, and Nancy can correct me if I'm wrong. I might miss some folks, but basically it was stakeholders, representatives from the schools, so Basich and Marin Catholic and Kent, maybe from the Bon Air Shopping Center and that complex and businesses, from the Greenbrae Homeowners, Property Owners Association, representing sort of the view from Greenbrae property owners, as well as CSA 16, which is also made up of residents of Greenbrae. There was folks participating from Kent Woodlands, from the Kent Woodlands Property Owners Association, and from KPAB, the Kentfield Planning Advisory Board. Sort of stakeholder groups and some other individuals around there, and it was pretty much the same, I think, group over time, though it's been several years now, and that was because also towards keeping folks apprised and people were knowledgeable about the project generally. So that is the group. I don't know that it's set in stone, but it has served a really great function. And I will tell you right now, actually, that one of the missteps, and I will own it, was that frankly, this lighting plan didn't get the same amount of attention from the community advisory group as other elements of the project did. So it wasn't their fault, it was a misstep. And partly had to do with timing because the lighting plan came later. And so anyway, I will own that, and there we have it. So that's a community advisory committee. And we can flesh that out. I'm not sure how the project team wants to move forward with that committee, if they want to expand on it or not, but that's what it is. Okay, hopefully I answered your question. And I am going to go to Carrie. You can unmute yourself, Carrie. There.
Hi there. I think you're calling on me.
Yes.
So my name is Kari, and I
Hi,
live in Greenbrae. It's really nice to meet you. I know you've received several messages from me. My mother and I live along Sir Francis Drake, so we do have a very tall pole hanging over our backyard. But a question that I have is, there was a study done, and I think you said, or somebody had said, it was something like 40 what was it, 46,000 cars travel along Sir Francis Drake, that a traffic study was done. And I'm just curious, did they do a study of how many cars travel on Sir Francis Drake in the evening? Because living here on Bertano, the traffic dies down quite a bit after 7 o'clock. It's mostly those peak hours of like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I was just wondering if the team took that into account. And I'm just questioning why we need so many lights in the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, they did. They did extensive traffic studies and actually mapped traffic patterns and volumes on a 24-hour spread. I believe I can actually visualize the curve and the ramp up and then the numbers of cars during the day. So yes, they did. But I'm not, you'd have to ask a traffic engineer, but it's not so much how many cars are on the roadway. It's really about visibility. And frankly, from my own experience, the fewer cars on the road, the visibility almost gets more difficult. But also was not just about traffic, was also about lighting for folks using the sidewalks and the multi-use pathways along the side. So, but yes, all that information is there. And I've made a note of the question in terms of how does traffic volume sort of relate or interact or inform lighting? I think that's a great question. Okay, Lee, no, wait, I'm sorry. I can't see hands. I see a hand like this, Stephen. Okay, you should be able to unmute.
Yes, thank you. So I'm very involved in youth sports in the area, and from time to time, a high school will try and put up lights, and those successes are not met with much, well, they're not successful. And one of the items that comes up is character of the neighborhood. And in the June 2020 open house, Mr. Buckley said that the lights were not going to negatively impact the character of the Sir Francis Drake corridor. So the lights do. I mean, they're huge and they loom over people's homes. So my question is, how is the character, or how do you see the character of the corridor, and how is that going to be affected by this lighting change? And really, how do we get those opinions to the advisory group and then eventually to, to a vote or whatever it's going to take to get the change done?
Okay, so I think that community character and asking one person how they would define community character, you're going to get different answers from different folks. There may be some commonalities, but I actually think it's almost in a way a dangerous term because it can kind of be interpreted in different ways. I do think that my assessment of what the community would be looking for is, one, meet the goals, but let's not make any significant changes to what sort of the infrastructure is looking like right now. That being said, we are modernizing things, so there's changes, whether it's at the intersections or frankly even the lighting poles for whatever the new traffic lights are, maybe requiring something else. But I think that this kind of actually goes back to, Stephen, the usefulness and the utility of this community advisory group, and then bringing back, having their input inform ultimately the lighting plan to the degree that we have discretion. And he went away, I can't see him now. And then that coming back to the larger community. So as I said, this lighting plan didn't get the input from the community advisory group, which is really a good representative. And I do think and do know they are concerned about community character as well. So I think that's the best I can answer your question right now. I also want to say, and I said it earlier, any changes to lighting, I can tell you this, anywhere in the county, probably anywhere in the country, you change lighting and especially going to LED anywhere, but changes in lighting in neighborhoods are almost always going to make somebody unhappy. It is going to be different. That doesn't mean it has to be as different as this all was, and or frankly, this lighting plan needs to be responsive to community input, and it hasn't benefited from that. And in this go round, in this redo of the lighting, it will have the benefit of that community input. Okay, I hope I answered your question. I'm trying to go all over we're doing okay. Let's see. It's 5:36 and I'm seeing like 8 hands up. So I think we're doing pretty well. We'll keep going at this rate. I'll try to keep my answers shorter so we get to more questions. Helen, Jaffe, can you unmute yourself? Helene, you should be able to, wait, try it again.
Not unmute.
There it is. There it
Anyway,
is.
Elaine, we've met before many times,
Yes.
Katie. I want to thank Stephen. I think he talked about the character. When the new gating, whatever you want to call it, was put on the sidewalk, we made some calls and had a nice chat with Nancy, because I've got school-age grandchildren walking and biking. And I was really kind of startled. The cabling, well, you know, that's character. And then all of a sudden, you know, all of a sudden these enormous street lamps come on that are really meant for a 12-lane highway. I mean, with 4 lanes, and you're making them smaller. You're making them calming, I think was the word, Katie, that you've used in the past about reducing the width of the lanes. Mm. And I'm not troubled. We're up on the hill. I don't see it. My children are troubled, but they'll sing their own battle. I don't need to do it for them. But it's sort of a juxtaposition. You have the cute little cabling, which I honestly don't believe will save a young child on a bike, and this industrial lighting. So, you know, what are we? Are we fish or fowl? Are we a country lane or a highway? And I think, you know, I understand that progress has to go forward, and I don't think any of the people who are here want it to stop, and we do need good lighting. Mm-hmm. But I do hope that there are alternatives to what we already have. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am confident that we're going to be able to find something that is much more aligned in keeping and in alignment with what folks would expect in that corridor. Yes, an upgrade, and yes, a modernization, but I have confidence we're going to come up with something that is going to better meet people's expectations. All right, hands up. Let's see, Bettina, there you go.
Hi, it's nice to meet you virtually. I have a couple quick points or questions and points I would like to make. The first is that while I understand that the lighting wasn't subject to an environmental impact report because of various dispensations, you know, from a QC point of view, especially in light of how much public discord that you know the plan has yielded, I'm wondering if the county plans to do one in light of this. Secondly, I'm wondering if the walkway cables and, you know, toothpicks, if you will, is that something tabled to be revised? Because I too have school-aged kids, one of which is at Kent and another who is starting Redwood. And I don't feel safe letting them walk along that pathway. And frankly, there was a car accident along that pathway last week when we happened to be walking together, and just the mere sight of that was completely unnerving. So I want to know if that's something that's going to be addressed as well. And then finally, and I know I'm a broken record on this point, but you know, it goes to a larger issue, which is a lack of transparency. I participated and read and stayed informed of a lot of the plans for this, and at very few points, if at all, do I recall not only the lights and the sizing of them being addressed, but also the fence that is missing on Sir Francis Drake in between Alicio and La Cuesta Boulevard. I've emailed persistently because that leads to an easement that is up the street, just 2 houses up from us, and it provides direct access to our street on Corte Morada. And it's problematic for several reasons. The first of which is that I have a written email guaranteeing that fence was going to be put back up within 3 weeks of it being torn down, which we never had notice of. There was never any indication in any of the plans that fence was coming down. And now apparently I'm being told that it's, quote, a high priority, yet it's going to take several months to re-erect because of budget problems. Apparently there was under $30,000 budgeted for the replacement of that fence, which I know for a fact cost more than that because I had to split my fence with the county and it cost more than that. And that was 5 years ago. So, you know, the lack of transparency and the perhaps miscalculations of costs with respect to replacing that fence and the nature and extent of the foliage that blocked and served as a barrier to the neighbors on Corte Morada. I mean, neighbors who are way up at the end of the street who aren't even on Sir Francis Drake have called me repeatedly saying, it must be so bad for you because it's so bad for us and we never heard the noise. So the noise, the dirt, it needs to be taken care of and it needs to be a higher priority.
Okay, so Bettina, there's 2 things. I don't know if you're already in touch with my office, but please do send me an email and Nancy will work with you with regards to the fence thing. And I'm not saying that I have solutions for you, but I'm trying to keep this conversation focused really on the lights. And there will be an opportunity to talk about other stuff. The cable, and specifically, you know, the elements of the project from the sidewalks to the intersection improvements to the multi-use path and the fencing that's being used there. None of that is up for redesign. Really, the only thing that we're looking at is the lights. And there are lots of technical reasons and aesthetic reasons that cable fencing and that design was chosen. And Nancy will be able to help provide information about that and why it is, you know, as protective as the old, the guardrails sort of. Anyway, but I want us to keep this meeting focused on the lights. And, but I am happy to work with you, and my office is happy to work with you on the fence issues and also towards providing responses to your other questions. But I actually, we can always do better on communication. We can always do better on transparency. I'm not saying that everything has gone perfectly, but I do think that it's a high value for me and we'll always try to do better. So if you have a lighting question or related towards the process going forward, your hand is up. And so Steven Stompanato, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Well, you should be able to unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Hi. I have a question regarding the poles, the light poles.
Yeah.
That they were engineered by Caltrans, and these are like for interstates. And if I hope they do come down, they can be repurposed and put into highways as opposed to on our street, which would be a cost savings. So I don't see where this couldn't be happening for us, and you know, get us lights that are character of the neighborhood and for safety. Have you heard that?
Yes, actually I have. And if any of those poles, if it does turn out that any of those poles are come down and are replaced, they can be resold. So it's actually, yes. And then just another comment on the poles, though those are larger and they're taller, they are actually the same general style as what was existing in the corridor. That's what I've been told. So, but Stephen, perfect comment and registered, and yes, anything that comes down in terms of poles actually can be sold and repurposed. So that's good news.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Did I already call on Adrian? I'm sorry. Adrian, then, okay, Adrian, there you go.
Great, thank you, Katie. Can you hear me okay?
Welcome.
Perfect. Okay, great. I mean, I think it's been raised one way or the other, but I'm on the Almanar corridor, and I've been affected by, my backyard was literally a soccer field there for a week or so. And the other piece, of course, is now I have one of these poles right in front of Mount Tam, right, my view, and having kind of an anecdotal conversation with a local realtor, it absolutely has an impact on property values. All of us along Almanar right now are taking a, 1 to 5% hit on property value potentially, and this is granted a lot of vagueness there by having these poles there. So I'm obviously a huge proponent of having these poles removed because they clearly impede the view, and a little concerned that wasn't taken into account when that was thought about in the first place. How many homes would actually have this impediment of view? So I guess my concern is with these new lighting consultants, are they going to be focused purely on lighting or aesthetic and that piece of it as well? And I know that it's a very vague concept to talk about kind of community, what it looks like in a community, but others have figured this out. And many have raised Miller Avenue along Mill Valley as an example of where they got it right. And some folks have actually taken pictures of that where, granted, it may be a different type of street, but they've figured out how to somehow make it feel like it was part of the community. So it's a question as well as a comment is, can we make sure that this lighting consultant is thinking just as hard about aesthetics and view impediment as they are about lighting safety?
And the answer is yes and yes. We can't forego the safety piece, but the aesthetic and that sort of community character piece in terms of folks using the corridor, but also knowing now also that perspective from people's homes and yards. Yes, it's all being factored in.
Great, thank you.
And you may have someone want to come visit from your backyard to get that perspective.
Please do, yeah, thanks.
All right. Pam Meggs. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Good to see you, Katie. I'm on the Sierra Club Executive Committee, and there is some concern from the environmental. Can you hear me all first? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so there is a term that the National Geographic Society uses as light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally get it, about safety. I'm a nurse. Safety is always first. And aesthetics, obviously, for property values and just living in your home. But I think if you may want to add to your consultant about it can change birds migration. It can change the seasonal trees, how they cycle, but also your biological clock for those really high-end LEDs. It actually happened to me here in Fairfax. They put in those lights and the whole block just had it and went downtown, and we were able to remedy it with shades.
Mm-hmm.
But it kept you up. You had to buy blackened curtains. So I guess I want to end on concentration of lighting, that more is not better. So hopefully we can all work together and find a happy medium. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I'm realizing I didn't answer Bettina's question about the environmental review and CEQA process. And, everything was done the way it should have been up to date. But they will continue. I will be making sure that we are paying attention and not just following the rules, but doing that analysis correctly. And we'll share that with you. So, Tim Treadway, good evening. Is it working? There we go.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
I'm fine. And wait, before you go on, Tim, I just meant to say at the top, I hope everyone's fine with everything else that's going on and your families are well and you're safe. The lights are one thing, and then there's the COVID. So anyway, okay, Tim, sorry, go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thanks for listening. Just to follow on some of the other comments, I was looking forward to this upgrade on Sir Francis Drake as going to be an aesthetic upgrade as well. And of course, we've all been over the lights, and I look up at them, and they look like freeway lights. So I went out of my car and drove up and down 101. Not only are they the same lights, but there are big swaths of road that don't have any lights. And for whatever reason, there's no consistency along 101, at least from my perspective, as to what the lighting is or isn't. And what I envisioned on Sir Francis Drake was what someone just mentioned was Miller in Mill Valley with Lamb. You know, there's such a great way to do it and make it feel like a residential area, not just a busy corridor with the biggest lights. I mean, they really are ridiculous. It's crazy. But everyone else has said that, and I really appreciate the fact that you're taking this up and you're going to do something about it, because it really is it's not an upgrade to Sir Francis Drake with these lights in place. They just look terrible. That's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's see. Hands raised. Joel Williams.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can hear you. We can hear you.
Thank you for taking my call or my question. I'm going to echo a lot of sentiments that have already been commented on in regards to the aesthetic and the lights. I think we all are thrilled with the thought process of upgrading the Drake, and we're making it just feel more neighborhood. And I think that's probably what has alarmed so many people, is it doesn't feel as neighborhood as it had previously. And so I wanted to just touch base in regards to kind of the shields, which it sounds as though in little comments that seems to be a relatively good solution. However, at Laurel Grove, they seem to have used those shields as well. And it doesn't seem to have dimmed the area enough. It still seems rather bright. It seems like where they directly hit, it's less bright, but it doesn't seem to do anything as it crosses over the street. So I just want to reiterate the fact that I hope the thought process of shields isn't kind of like the stopgap measure, and
Right.
that it continues to be looked at it from an overall perspective, so that we can continue the aesthetic of, something like Tim had made a comment about, Adrian had made a comment about. There's a number of ways in communities across the US, not just even here in our own community, they've been able to address four-lane streets with lighting and lamppost like lights with flowers and things like that tend to give it a sense where if you feel like you're driving through a neighborhood, you hope people are going to drive slower than if they're driving on a freeway. And I think the thought process of the lights that are technically the same spec as ones on a freeway are going to indicate that you will drive faster. So it seems to kind of negate the whole thought process of safety, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
I'm just hoping that the shields aren't a stopgap, and that
No, I think they're one tool that probably has a really good application, and an application in certain situations. It's one tool, and I've been told by the project team that the consultant we're bringing on is really looking at the gamut, and this is kind of what they do. So you're well heard, and I think that the comments that are being made are the kinds of comments and things that the project team is taking into consideration, is going to help inform. So let's see. I'm going to try to get through as many folks as we can. Carrie Keefe, you can unmute, Carrie. Oops.
Unmute.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just messed my screen up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I concur with everybody. I had to leave the meeting for a few minutes, so I wasn't sure if anybody said that the standards on the Bonnier Bridge, I think, are very attractive. The standard itself is painted green, and it has an old-fashioned look to it. It would sort of match what's already existing in Larkspur and close to the hospital, et cetera. And everything else that everybody has said about those lights, I totally agree. So that was the only other comment. I don't know if somebody already made it or not.
I think that sort of fits in the bailiwick of looking at aesthetics and different, some of it's color, some of it's design. And I don't want to make promises that they're going to change out all those light standards to be something, a whole new, brand new look. As I said before, there was light poles there, and there was intersection light poles there before. And now there are more, and some of them are much larger. But I don't want to make a promise that we can switch this all out to look like downtown Larkspur.
It's too bad.
No, it would be great, but it may be beyond possibility. So let's just wait and see. But I think
Okay.
we're going to be working as hard as possible to come up with something that folks like a lot better.
At least take a couple of them out, but there's way too many of them.
No, and that could be part of the mix, and it could be that the multi-use path gets lit up in a different way than with those median lights. I mean, there's alternatives being looked at. So,
Great.
but this is all really good input going into this.
Okay.
Ann Becker.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Ann, there you go.
Thank you for calling on me, but I put my hand down because my question has been answered.
Okay, then you can't talk anymore, Ann.
Okay.
I'm her friend. She's a friend. I'm just teasing her. So, anyway, let's see. Mohsen, can you unmute?
Yes, hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. I have written to you extensively about this issue of lights. And I'm just going to keep it short. I'm sorry that I have bothered you so much about it.
It's okay.
Of course, it was the first time I ever wrote to you about anything because you've been doing a great job.
I think you wrote Hal Brown though way back when.
Well, I am that old anyway. So I live on the corner of Wolf Grade and Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. I'm the only resident in this corner. There is no other houses. I'm just the only one. I can see 11 lights from my bedrooms, living room, dining room, kitchen, yards. This is not really right. As one of the gentlemen earlier mentioned, the property value is going to be affected very severely because of this, especially in my case, with all these posts up there. So I hope you show the generosity of having one of the team members to visit this area with me, to come to my location, because as I said, I am the only resident on this corner, so nobody else is going to write to you about this corner.
So no, Mohsen, and it's not a matter of having more people on an intersection, right? If you have not already put your information into the project website, we will pass on your name and address. So someone will be reaching out to you. Okay.
That would be great because, you know, I understand.
You're also in a really tough location with that intersection, the way it's configured.
Yes.
So I'm gonna move on to, I don't mean to cut you off, but we'll go over 6 o'clock. I just have to be out of here by 6:15.
No, I'm fine. I'm done. Thank you.
All right. And let's see. So I'm going down the list here. Ford's mom. Who is Ford's mom?
Hi, this is me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I have 4 young children, so I appreciate the safety issues. And I'm just wondering if there's other ways to talk about safety aside from the large lights. Could you have, street lights or like blinking lights that I think you guys are doing over at Ash?
Mm-hmm.
Something else, that's just not necessarily overhead light, but that would address the safety issue.
Perhaps in some places, I'm not sure, but those crossings are called hawk light.
Okay.
But anyway, I think that hearing you and to sort of expand on it, it's really about what tools can we have in the toolbox to address to meet the safety needs and also the sort of community and aesthetic needs. So
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Steve O'Shea.
Hey, Katie, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't. There you are. Wait.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I had to go to my phone. My computer, my kids crushing too much bandwidth on my computer. So I had to go to my phone. First of all, a couple comments here because a lot of the questions that I had have been addressed. already. I want to thank you for the forum. I want to thank you for the attention. As you know, we've got close to 800 signatures on a petition. You've got 75 plus people here. This is clearly a major concern. So I'm glad that you're taking the time to address this. And I think this is a good opportunity for county and community to work together on this for a solution. I want to make clear that everybody recognizes that it's not just the light emanating from the structures themselves that's the problem. It's the physical structures as well that are a major problem. So I want to, one of the questions I had, actually Mosan had just basically addressed it. I have pictures from people who don't live at Wolf Grade, but live at Manor. And there are 11 lights there, and they have had to install blackout shades. And so I'm glad to hear that there is consideration, and I'm focused on having lights removed or significantly lowered along the street and along the road. But I do want to speak for some people who do live at these intersections. We understand safety. We understand that intersections have to be lit. But I want to make sure that the default is not 30 foot high with a small shield put on it, because if you go to Manor and Sir Francis Drake at 9 o'clock at night, it's like an airport and there's no cars. So last comment I'll make is about the traffic. So the light specifications from BKF Engineering were but to Caltrans standards because there are 46,000 cars that travel through the corridor on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. But I'm quite sure that BKF did an assessment of how much that drops off at sunset. And I'm willing to bet that a small fraction of the cars that travel are the vast majority of the cars that travel are during daylight, business, and school hours, and it drops off dramatically. I live right off of the street, and the traffic dies down significantly at night. So I just want to make sure that that people are aware that the need for highway style lighting is not necessary, because the volume of traffic at night is significantly lower. So to end with a question, are you going to be addressing intersections specifically and in terms of reducing the light volume and number to the lowest possible amount while maintaining safety standards?
I think that feels like it's the bar that's being set, but you said all the right things. It's how do we meet the safety standards and objectives? And I think you're I think it is totally appropriate to be thinking if the car volume is a variable that drives the height of the pole or the number of the lights, then let's make sure that the traffic volume at night is the number that's being used. And then the degree to which we can minimize visual impact of both the infrastructure and the light and meet the safety, the lighting needs. I think that's the goal. So I can't tell you that means that that there's going to be light poles or standards taken out at intersections, or how many or how tall the poles are going to be, because I don't know. But nothing you're saying to me doesn't make sense towards informing an ultimate product.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for leading the charge on this in an appropriate way, and appreciate the leadership.
Well, Katie, yeah, we look forward to working with you, right?
No,
I know that, yeah.
It's all good, Steve. I'm actually, you know what, things can go wrong, and then you work to get them fixed.
Great.
All right, so let's see, Rick Addis.
Thanks, Katie. Nice to meet you virtually, and I'll just echo Steve and everybody to say thanks for the forum for all the community. Quick question, maybe you covered it, I just want to be clear. So our property backs up against Sir Francis Drake. We're on Almanar. We've got a light fixture hanging into our backyard. It hasn't been on that I know of, but you know, I can, when it goes on, you know, like Steve was saying, it's going to be like lighting up the football field. So how do I ensure that our property, you know, that we're registered? Did I hear you say we need to email you directly or through Upgrade the Drake, or both?
Yeah, you can go either way. Either way, we'll just go to Upgrade the Drake, frankly, because then you're going right in. And I can't make any promises. I don't know what you're like.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But I do think it's really helpful to get very specific addresses associated with problems.
Yeah, we've got one literally, you know, I can look out our kitchen, and then there's one, I mean, again, I can look out the kitchen, see the next one that's going to eliminate our neighbor and our neighbor's neighbor. So just want to make sure we're in there. And again, I'll echo what everybody said about aesthetics. You know, there's green, painted poles that are
Yeah.
on Almanar that like, okay, that would be fine, especially at night. So
Yeah.
count me in that camp. And again, I'll take my comments about the multi-use path and cable fencing. I'm not a huge fan either. I get it. You know, they did what they did, but that's another meeting. So again, thank you for hosting the forum and appreciate you listening to all of us here in the community.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Joseph.
Hey, how's it going? Actually, I'm Benny. Jamie's my wife, but a couple things. The lighting consultant, I don't know if I heard all the details around that, but just from what I gathered, it seems like they're more of like a lighting, like meaning like lumens. They know the science behind lights, but it would be great if, I forgot what the committee was called. It'd be great if they could vet that person. My confidence right now in like our ability to kind of balance the aesthetic with the actual science behind lighting is quite low. Just like I'm worried that that person is going to be really just like a scientist around lighting versus the aesthetic part. And you mentioned a couple of times today that there used to be big poles there, and I get it. And that's why I was excited about the upgrade to Drake. In my mind, I had vision like, oh, wow, we're going to actually make this feel like Greenbrae, right? And I think a lot of people have said that today. And I think the key is going to be getting the right person to be able to look at the space and like make those adjustments. And we've kind of glossed over, but that hire or that consultant is the answer. Like the right person is key. And so can we be involved? Has that already been chosen? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's not going to be one person. It's actually it's going to be a firm. And what I've asked for is not only, I've asked for, obviously you want the technical capability, but you also want a firm that's used to dealing with communities and responsive to community concerns and understands that mix. This is not just about light, this is about aesthetics. And then frankly, a third requirement is actually a firm that works with communities, because I anticipate us doing something, I mean, not at the scale by any means, but when we go to have that community meeting and bring just alternatives to get input, probably this consultant would be part of that. They're used to front facing and interacting with the community, as well as doing the technical and engineering design. So, but I don't think it's been done, and I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to bring a bunch of firms before the CAC and make the decision. But I think you're going to have to trust me on this one, that I'll make sure that the team is bringing on someone who has the capacity to do not just the technical and the engineering and that assessment, but also understands how important that community piece is in terms of how does this work for the human beings who live there and for our own, I don't want to say community character, it's about our own personal aesthetic and community aesthetic, and is well versed in what the options are. And frankly, that's probably also a firm that's done work in the County of Marin, generally, just towards understanding our communities. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm probably talking too much. Okay, Francesca or Simon, Francesca Simon. I think you can unmute. You have to, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I've been doing pretty well up till now.
Got it. Okay,
Good.
thank you. Thank you very much. All along, you've been talking about the safety and the traffic that comes at night for the lighting. You talked about cars, trucks, buses, and pedestrians. There's no pedestrians at night walking along there. I live on the corner of Manor and Sir Francis Drake. I had a beautiful dead-on Mount Tam view out my kitchen window and out my living room window. And I can now see 7 light fixtures, 7. And no one is saying we need to take into consideration car traffic and residential living. No one has said that from your department. You guys talked about cars, trucks, buses, and pedestrians. Why? Pedestrians, I know who goes down the street there at nighttime. There's hardly anybody walking in the dark along Sir Francis Drake. And we need to say they need to take into consideration the residential area. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Francesca. Let's see, Ina?
Hi. Thanks so much for having everyone here tonight and listening to our concerns. I don't want to necessarily echo everyone else's comments about community character, and as you said, that's sort of in the eye of the beholder. But the one thing I do want to go back to is a comment that you made at the start of this meeting, which is when you said that this is a once in a generational kind of opportunity to work on a section of major road in our county that we will not in our lifetimes, I don't think, see an opportunity like this again. And one of the things that I think that we do need to go back to is the idea that this is not just a transportation corridor. This is also a place where people live. I know that especially at the intersections at Alicio and at La Cuesta at Sir Francis Drake, there is a lot of pedestrian traffic that winds up happening along that section of people crossing to the Bon Air Center from Greenbrae and back. Daily, it happens, on a regular basis. And that particular section is especially important because it's part of the Greenbrae community in that it bridges the two sides of Greenbrae that are currently split by Sir Francis Drake. So one of the things I'm hoping that we can consider as we go forward is how to make Sir Francis Drake, instead of a barrier between North and South Greenbrae and Larkspur, and instead making it a community connector, not just a pathway for traffic to travel to and from Central Marin to the freeway, but as an integral part of our local community here. So again, it's not just about character, it's also about making people who live here and use this section of Sir Francis Drake daily, multiple times daily, whether it's commuting to and from school or going to get food or going at the bank or anything at Bon Air Center. It would be great to create a lighting plan that actually makes the road feel, instead of a barrier, making it more of a connector. So that's just my opinion. And in terms of lighting along the multi-pathway, the lights that are currently along the median don't really light that pathway, especially if there's going to be any trees, or hopefully, I'm really hoping that you'll be replanting many of the trees that have been taken down. But if really the case for safety along that walkway or that multi-use pathway on the north side is important, it needs to be actually along the pathway itself, as opposed to in the median trying to shine over to that side of the street. So those are just my comments. Thank you.
Really great comments. Thank you. And I know that they're looking at different ways to light up the pathway as well. So, but excellent comments. Appreciate them all, Ina. Let's see. Josh.
That's me. I'm Cece.
Hi, Cece.
I want to reiterate a couple concerns already mentioned and then just throw out a new idea. So my main concerns are also, I live at around the corner from Alicio and Sir Francis Drake, and the overall amount of light pollution there. That's my toddler.
It's okay. It's okay.
There is from the area already. Like when we moved in, just from Bon Air, we already had to put in really dark shades. And
they know. The kids always know.
The question is if there's a lot of different amount of lighting already in different areas of Sir Francis Drake. Like the Alicio corner is already really bright all night because of Bon Air. And I was wondering if that was taken into account at all.
It is. I think it's an excellent comment, and it is now on the record. And yeah, it's how much lighting helps. Does it have to be generated from the traffic lights, or the public infrastructure, or is something already being lit up by other infrastructure that's on? Well, so it's now part of the mix.
And one quick thing I also wanted to add on that someone already said, I have the same concern that actually the opposite thing will happen as opposed to having more safety because of the amount of lighting and the size of the light poles seeming so industrial, that people will drive faster without realizing it because they'll feel like they're on a throughway, and therefore the opposite effect will happen. It won't be safer. It'll feel more like a freeway, and it'll be less safe for pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ann Peterson.
Hi.
Hi, Ann. Oh, you just muted yourself. You have to unmute again. Oh, shoot. I don't, here, stop, Ann, for a second, stop. Don't touch anything from, oh, there we go. Wait.
Okay. I think I'm on. I just wanted to, I don't want to comment too much, but I agree with everything that's been said. I live in Kentfield. I'm a Kentfield Planning Advisory Board chair. I've participated in the advisory meetings, and I've read all the comments on Nextdoor because I really care about this corridor and this community. And I agree with all the comments, and I will be supportive of trying to solve this problem. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Pat Keeney.
Yes, hi, thank you. So I first of all, thank you for the meeting, but I do want to comment on the process. I think it's obvious that all of us on the call feel like the process and the community advisory committee has failed us in a major way.
Well, so let me don't blame the community advisory committee, because they only were able to review what was brought to them. So there just wasn't a meeting focused online. So don't throw the community advisory committee under the bus. They've done a great job up till now. But you can throw it at me and the county team.
I'm not interested in assigning blame. What I'm interested in is making sure we don't repeat it. So what I'd ask you is, I think nobody on this call wants to wait and see the next solution goes up, because I heard words like we will replace or improve the fixtures. And I think many of us feel like the best solution in many cases is removal, at least removal of the vast majority of them. And so I guess my question is really, how are we going to change the process so that everybody who spent the last hour and 15 minutes has an opportunity to see the next solution before it goes up?
Yeah, so just to remind folks, and maybe you missed this, but I went over. So actually we anticipate that the consultant working with the county team is going to work on developing alternatives. They will use the CAC to run some of that stuff through the CAC, alternatives, get some input there. Then they will be bringing something back, hopefully, to the community, and I'm happy to host another meeting to get more community input on alternatives, because the hope is that there's not just one solution. There may be only one solution for some things, but there's probably going to be some options, and so we're going to want more community feedback. So there will be an opportunity for a presentation of alternatives, and for the community to provide impact, and then for a preferred alternative to be shared with the community. And hopefully by then this stuff will align. So it's not going to be that all these comments that are being made right now are going to go into a pot, and the CAC and the design firm are going to work on things. And then the next thing we know, we'll have lights. The community is going to get to see what they come up with. And I do want to manage expectations. I don't, I know that no matter how many improvements are made that meet some people's expectations and folks are happy about, there's undoubtedly going to be somebody who's unhappy, but hopefully it'll be an improvement. But I would rather manage expectations than promise the moon. But the intent is to do the absolute best job towards meeting community concerns, towards reducing that light pollution and pole pollution that folks are seeing, and meet the objectives around where the lighting needs to be for safety. So one more, Catherine, you're last, and then y'all, I'm gonna say goodbye and jump in my car and race home for another Zoom that starts at 7. So Catherine, where is she? I lost you. Uh-oh. And I can't unmute you if I can't see you. Okay, maybe Catherine's not there anymore. Okay, so anybody else at the very last minute who hasn't spoken yet? Okay, and so anyone else who would rather provide their comment or question? There you are, Catherine. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I just wanted to piggyback off that other woman who was talking about the CAC.
Yep.
Because, you know, we've all been under quarantine for the past year. And so you would have thought that, you know, I live on Britannia Way, right where these lights are. And I didn't hear hide nor hair of anything of these lights. Something in May in the Independent Journal, but that's it. So I'm wondering if the CAC has representation from the people who are affected along this way. I mean, you said the Greenbrae Homeowners Association was involved, but you know, there's a lot of Greenbrae, and a lot of them don't live along Britannia Way or Corte Morada or all these places that are affected.
Right.
So what I'm worried about is going forward, we're going to have some, you know, representation from the people here who are affected. I mean, personally, if you want to hear my story, we have a light right outside on Britannia Way, which we knew about when we bought the house. Mm-hmm. And then these lights went on out here on Sir Francis Drake, and it was like daylight in here. Yeah. And our master bedroom is on Sir Francis Drake. So it was not good at all. So I'm worried about being represented. It doesn't feel like the CAC had people in my neighborhood at all, because we didn't, you know, really know about this till the lights went up.
So Catherine, I think what I'm going to be doing is working with our project people to make sure that CAC, and because this is going to be very specific, right, to the lighting plan. So I think it makes sense to actually maybe find a few people who are on those streets, on Almanar, or wherever, that are more directly affected. I'm not going to bring everybody in, but I do think it makes sense. And I know that the folks from the GPOA, Greenbrae Property Owners Association, you know, they can be reaching out and talking to people as well. Same with the CA16. But I would be supportive of sort of fleshing out that CAC a little bit. So with that, so anyway, Catherine, thank you. CAC is a community advisory committee, right, made up. And anyway, so with that, I am going to actually say goodbye. I want to thank you all for being here. Please, I hope I answered questions. I hope sufficiently. I hope that you, I hope I've communicated well enough so you understand my intention and the project team's intention. There is a lot of excellent information on the project website at www.upgradethedrake.com. Please add comments or questions there. They have a great input button. Oh, here we go. And then also always feel free to reach out directly to my office. And I will keep you updated. Hopefully we've got your email. If you're on this call, I suspect you've emailed me or emailed the website, and all those emails are grouped together, and I will keep you apprised as we go along here. So really appreciate your time. I apologize for what happened, and I just want you to know that I'm committed to doing the best we can to actually address these concerns, your concerns, and hope and I'm confident we're going to come out the other side with a much improved project, and hopefully, you know, hopefully we're all happy. But I know that's a far cry. So, Nancy, thank you for your help, and good night, everybody. Stay safe, and you can also email me or reach out to my office about anything else as well. Bye, you guys.